Number 13. The ending multiplication effect. Since the first Star Wars movie, the endings have been getting more and more complicated, culminating with Episode 1. After that, they toned it down because they think they realized how awful it was, but let me break it down here. A New Hope. The story is flawlessly built up to the final conclusion. Stop the Death Star before it blows up the planet. The Empire Strikes Back. All story points converge at Cloud City. Luke has his first confrontation with Vader, and Leia and friends try to escape. Return of the Jedi. Luke confronts the Emperor. There's a battle on Endor to destroy the shield generator, and the Rebel fleet attacks the Death Star. And you got 3 stories going on at once. Finally, we get to the Phantom Menace. Gungans fight the droid army. Queen Amidala storms the palace to get the Viceroy. Anakin and Naboo pilots attack the droid control ship, and Jedi's lightsaber fight in the Theed Power Room. So then you got 4. This was one of the major mistakes made in Episode 1. Ironically, the simplest endings, the first 2 movies, with the least locations and events, are vastly more interesting because the plot is built up to them and we can focus on the one thing. After the rough-cut screening of the movie for the first time, everyone in attendance looks just as baffled at the clusterfuck as we were. George admits to throwing too much out there.
I may have gone too far in a few places.
Yeah? The editor then attempts to explain pacing and why 4 scenes with totally different emotional tones don't work well together.
In a space of about 90 seconds, you go from lamenting the death of, a hero, to escape, to slightly comedic with Jar Jar, to Anakin returning when
But he kind of realizes he's wasting his time, so he stops. Rick McCallum is frozen in utter shock at how horrible the movie was. Internally, he regrets not challenging Lucas on some of the things he was worried about. Lucas then realizes that he can't remove major segments of the movie in editing because they're intertwined.
I mean, I've thought about this quite a bit, and the tricky part is you almost can't take any of those pieces out of there now. Because each one kind of takes you to the next place, and you can't jump.
No, I love it.
Hey, it's too late now. Later on, after everybody started drinking, Lucas attempts to explain his newly minted bowel movement as bold and extreme, stylistic.
It's stylistically designed to be that way, and you can't undo that, but we can diminish the effects of it.
No one looks like they know what's going on, and they all look like they're about to start pointing fingers. But that's just my interpretation of this footage. I wasn't there. So now we get to the ending. They burn Qui-Gon's body, they celebrate Yoda's, there's like an Indian chick there, and there's another thing that looks like Yoda, but it kind of looks like a midget. And then later on, or earlier or something, Yoda and Obi-Wan are talking in the castle, and Yoda says,
"Grave danger I fear in his training."
I gave Qui-Gon my word.
"Oh, you gave Qui-Gon your word." I suppose it's better to rely on that than rather the whole prediction of grave danger. So it seems like the Jedi Council reluctantly agrees to let Obi-Wan train the boy for no real reason. Hey, remember, this is not like some kind of boardroom of company executives making a decision about applesauce packaging. These are Jedi Masters whose entire existence is solely based on the Force, feelings, premonition, and prophecy. When they all feel weirded out and predict grave danger, you'd think they, of all people, would follow their own instincts. But instead, for no reason at all, they allow the training.
Agree with you, the council does. Your apprentice, Skywalker, will be.
Hey, maybe you should have just said no. Yoda's supposed to be really wise, right?
Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
Wait, what did he just say? Maybe he isn't that wise, 'cause that don't make a lick of sense. Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. Can't anger lead to fear, and fear lead to suffering, and then suffering lead to hate? You see, when you have 3 totally interchangeable emotional states, they can't really be arranged in a certain pattern of logic. Let me share some real wisdom with you. Chicken leads to egg. Egg leads to omelet. Omelet leads to fecal urgency. Number 14. The Aftermath. The Phantom Menace is now the greatest example of cinematic blue balls in the history of motion pictures. And I ain't talking about the kind the Gungas had.
Gungas.
Never again will anything be more wildly anticipated or a bigger disappointment. So who dropped the ball? Well, I guess you could say it was everyone involved in the production, mainly the producers and those higher up on the food chain. Sure, it's easy to blame George for the script and doing everything wrong, but those people who didn't challenge Lucas on some of the questionable ideas, they also carry some blame. To quote Gary Kurtz, you can really see this in the behind-the-scenes videos. People look scared around George. They laugh at his bad jokes.
You're listening to the music.
When he comes into a room, there's like silence and fear and terror. Every so often you'll catch some looks of confusion and mistrust. You gotta wonder what some of these people were thinking. Now again, I must stress, I wasn't there and I can't pretend to know all the goings-on behind the scenes, but it all seems pretty obvious if you think about it. Lucas has always been a rogue filmmaker who hated the studio system. He always seemed to want total control on his projects, which I can understand. And while a director should have control on the project, filmmaking should also be a collaborative process. The second screenwriter can help focus the story and the dialogue. Actors are creative people too. They can provide valuable insight on the characters and a lot of really good ideas.
I love you.
I know.
And a good executive producer can be the voice of reason when things start to get out of hand. I think all this can be summed up with the expression, art from adversity. The original Star Wars was plagued with problems. Nothing worked right, things were rushed, I guess, but it ended up being a great movie. When you can make a movie entirely in a computer and then shoot everything against a blue screen in some kind of sterile laboratory, well, some of the magic is lost.
When Obi-Wan was walking around in Camino, George showed him concept paintings of, okay, now you're walking down a hallway and you're looking and you're seeing the cloning facilities, but there was nothing for him to see.
It ends up all looking so clean and sterile, and it lacks humanity, it lacks grit. The Phantom Menace also makes you wonder. With total control on every aspect of the film, from the writing to directing to casting, etc., this was the result? Then when you hear tales about how Luke was supposed to be a 65-year-old man with a robot head, Han Solo was supposed to be like a frog, and C-3PO was like a slimy used car salesman type,
C-3PO might sound like a used car salesman.
you have to just wonder, what if? What if Lucas had the kind of control back then he has today? Now I ain't gonna say much more here. I don't know all the facts. Now, I haven't really discussed yet what I found to be the most odd and out-of-place scene in the whole movie. When we first go into Watto's shop, and Jar Jar's messing around with the junk in the background, there's a part where things slow down, and then a talking pizza roll appears and starts talking directly to the audience. It says to butcher your wife in the bathtub.
Hello. You know what to do. Use the meat cleaver and swing hard to break the bone. Put the body in the dumpster and be careful not to get any blood on the carpet, because it doesn't wash out.
I found this scene to be really out of place and not make a whole lot of sense in the context of the movie. I'm not sure what Lucas was going for here, but considering some of the other scenes in the film, I guess it made sense. Now I'd like to discuss further...
Plinkett! Plinkett, open up! We have a warrant for your arrest.
It's the Freds, hold on.
Break down the door.
Oh god, they're breaking down the door. Hold on, I gotta get my gas. Stay back, coppers, I'm packing heat.
Drop the weapon. Drop the weapon.
Fire. Return fire.
Eat lead.
906, requesting backup. Requesting backup. We have an officer down. We have an officer
Eat lead, Tommy. Take that. Get out of my house. Get out of my creepy house. Don't go in my basement either. I've been hit.